Quick update on Eric's bay. It's back together. Dean spent the morning putting the engine and trans back in it, buttoning up everything. Hopefully we'll start doing test driving here in a minute. It's moving tires, that's always a good sign. This is what was wrong with it. A backup light switch. You see how the end of it is bent? So there's two of them on that bus and one comes in from the side. And that was what was giving a problem. You can actually see it tried bending it. Like this part went in too far. So we swapped that out. And now she's back together with reverse and forward gears. Look at that. You see how wet that gasket is? That's not from me pulling the cap off right now. That was leaking all the way around. Pretty insane. This motor has had its cam broken in, and you see a lot of metal transfer going on around here with a little bit of sparklies. Never a good sign. They got a sealant on the other side of it. Pretty silly, but not on this side of it. We got some suspect activity going on here. That's the pickup, the oil pickup. It's not secured. When they built the engine, they didn't put the proper hardware there. That's not actually indexed in that stud like it's supposed to be right there. And this thing just floats around. So all it's going to do is disconnect from the case, and then you no longer have suction. This is where I stopped yesterday. I've removed the stud. It wasn't holding anyways. It had probably a good 1/4 inch gap, but this is a problem. This was loosey-goosey, so it was actually sitting out of the case and down like that when I took that off. That's why I could pick it up and do that with it, which means it wasn't connected into the case on the business end over here. That's the sump plate I removed. It has metal transfer, and that's always to be expected, but this has some pretty chunky metal transfer, which I don't like. And when I see a symptom like a oil pickup tube coming loose inside a case, I wonder, did this thing already experience oil starvation issue, maybe on cam break-in? Because supposedly that's all that's been done to this. Why was that sump plate dropped, or the oil pickup tube dropped? The interior of this is like 19.22. I'm sorry, 19.32. This is what was in the motor. This is one I got on my shelf. $21.15. That's pretty nuts. This one's going to be going back on that motor. This interior tube, most likely these were different part numbers at one time, but I know just through experience, when you order them, they're coming from one supplier, then the next time you get them, a different supplier sending them in, and there'll be discrepancies between the two. That's a pretty big oversight. That is a very big oversight right there. The fact that the oil pickup tube, now there's a reason why. I bet a stock one would fit right on that sweet pickle. But this engine builder decided to use a pickup tube that was once modified for a sump. There's a welding ring around that. When I mic this out, it's 19.43 or something like that. So this is physically bigger than the opening inside that screen. So when they probably palmed that thing on there pretty good because it wasn't going on, you can see how bent that arm is. So someone smacked that dude on and it wasn't fitting around this right here, and it knocked that dude down. And then also we have another problem with the way that that stud was in. I hand threaded that onto that point there and it wouldn't move any more than that. I proceeded to get a nut driver to try and drive it on because I was going to double nut it to get the stud removed, and it locked itself on that stud as is, nothing to it. So the threads were so damaged on the stud that was sticking outside of the case. When they put the cap nut on it, it loosened up the stud. It drove the stud into the engine further, and then what they had locked in there was no longer locked in. It drove itself out. So if you're not aware what this does, this is your oil pickup tube, okay? This has an OD that matches the ID of a hole inside here, and it indexes into it. That is what supplies your oil pump with oil. From this point here, your oil pump draws it in and shoots it out there. If this is not a nice snug fit and held in place, like that's how much it's supposed to be in. That's how bent that is. That's that thing bedded all the way down when I pulled in that way. So I'm gonna have to modify that arm significantly from the exterior here. How do I do that when it's inside there? Regardless, this secured there and drawn in all the way creates the suction needed here. When this pulls out of that hole, like it can, like that, how I found it, now you have an opening inside here where it should have a vacuum draw. Let me see if I can get an angle there so you can see. So you can see there's a tube that comes off of there, and that tube indexes into the case down there. Very difficult to see, but that's what it does. I mean, even looking at that, I see chunks on there. I don't feel very comfortable about that. And yes, they did come off on my finger. So they are there, they're not, it's not welding, slag, or anything like that from that. It's actually loose metal. Necessity is the mother of all invention. So we made this today to be able to get that nut and turn it in like that. Took a cheapo Chinese 10mm and did some serious modifications to it. My buddy Chuck Greenwood built this one years ago, but I'd have to do like 8 turns on it. It drove me nuts. So that little offset right there should give me a full turning radius on that screw. I'm waiting for a Ross Wolf sump plate cover, designed for VW case. It'll come with a stud kit. Their cap nuts have the Viton ring on them, and it comes with the Viton gasket. So that's what we're going to end up putting in here. And I'm going to upgrade this to the larger throat. That fits right over that, unlike this early style. And you can visually see the difference there between those two throats. So we're going to put that on for the screen. This is a full float motor, but because I see so much metal debris, I want to make sure we have that physical screen on there as well. Probably going to stick a magnet in here somewhere. Oh, you know what? The Ross Wolf sump comes with a magnet on it. My bad. I picked up a Ross Wolf sump plate. That comes with new studs, including an extra long stud for putting that one in place. They also give you a flanged nylock. So it's nylock, flange on the back side. It goes on the interior to hold the pickup tube in place. So there's the tool I made for doing it. The great thing about that hardware being flanged is now it holds itself into my tool there, which came out really freaking cool. I'm stoked on that. It's going to help out tremendously. Normally I put a piece of tape along the bottom to hold the nut in place to keep it captive. That additional flange is really going to help out simplify this quite a bit. Another thing that's going to simplify this installation, the studs that Ross Wolf gives you have an Allen on top. A 3mm Allen fits inside the stud. That makes it so much easier for holding this in place while I put the lock in on that nylock on the interior here once I get that sucker in place. This dude's pretty long that they give you, but that's alright. It's got to do 2 jobs. It's got to hold this in place and hold that sump on place. The rest are all your standard sizes. So I'm going to get right to this. I'm going to put this guy in there. We're going to make sure that that pickup tube is indexed hard where it's supposed to go, and then finally mount it up nice and tight to where it should be. I'm going to make sure that I'm grabbing this sucker and I'm pulling it back this way to make sure it's indexed into that case where we want it to be. We're going to go ahead and start this stud into the case. Scratch that. I got to clean this mess up first. Alright, so I got that in there. Not the easiest, but the tool I made basically goes inside there. And I'm on the stud with the 3mm Allen on this side. And so I've tightened it down with this and held it in place with my little wrench I made there. You can see that it holds it in place. And I can take the stud in or out without moving that. So it is, I went in a little further than I need to. And I'm just checking right now before I tighten everything up, like I'm pulling this sucker back. Making sure it's where I want it. And I'm bringing that stud back out. And if I need to adjust that, once I figure out my perfect height I want, my tool can still get on it, loosen the bolt up, move the stud, and we're good to go. That takes care of that problem. So this is the screen I was talking about in the video with the bigger hole. So just to make sure that it fits on there without any issues, there we go. Look at that. Right on, no problems. Didn't move it. This didn't come loose again. It's not moving now as I sit there and try and bounce my finger off of it. I'm very happy with that. Thanks to the guys over at Ross Wolf for getting this out to me. They are not paid sponsors. I bought this. It's a $100 sump plate. Got a 10mm nut driver on it, driving it down. Feels good and tight. Feels like it could still maybe take one more turn. But right now I feel like I got plenty of tension on it. So I'm happy with my stud length there. Let's get the rest of them going. We've got all 6 studs in there. Look at that. No jingling, no jangling. In nice and solid. I'm happy with that. I'm going to clean everything up and install that screen and the 2 gaskets. Then this motor will officially be ready to install. Loctite everything in place, so I'm pretty confident in it now. I've now got it on there per instructions. 25 foot-pounds on the gold plug, and these are just hand tight with a quarter turn more on them when you're running the 2 Viton gaskets and the screen inside there. Typically I wouldn't run the screen in there, but because I see the larger debris in the oil, I'm leaving it there just for safety's sake. We got some old speed product. We got some line bug drop plates, adjustable drop plates. I did this today. Kind of a pain in the butt. Not that bad, but the grease that was used on these is the tackiest freaking grease on the planet. On the front, we've got a 2-inch old speed drop spindle. So I re-indexed these. I went up 2, if you're familiar with type 3 lowering, I went up 2 notches on that because we had an additional 2 inches of drop here. There's a chance I may need to rip this back apart when we actually put it on the ground and see where it sits. The rears are adjustable. So hopefully I can adjust the drop out of it if it needs to go lower, and then we still have room to take it up, obviously. We're gonna add the Willwood four-wheel disc brake kit to this square. Really cool looking car. Rodney Pinkerton is the owner. Good dude.